Hey, this is Connor from Biker's Edge. Today I'm out riding the Giant Rain 2 as part of our $3,000 bike test. I am here in Little Cottonwood Canyon. We got a bunch of tech, we got a bunch of high speed, climbing, drops, jumps, all of it. So stick around and check this review out. That was butter. Okay, the Giant Rain 29. Giant's back on that 29-inch wheel thing, which is pretty cool. Giant uses the Maestro suspension design. It's their kind of virtual pivot or floating pivot. Works really well. You sit a little higher in your travel, pedals pretty efficiently. It feels great on the downhill. Big fan of that design. This bike has 46 millimeters of rear travel and 160 front. It's in that like 65, maybe just a hair under degree head tube. I think it is exactly 65. It's their enduro race bike. This is the alloy version. It's the Rain 2. It runs an NX drivetrain, Shimano 500 level, no name brakes. It's got Giant's dropper post in it, RockShox fork and shock. Nothing is super high end, but I think Giant did a good job of picking components that'll last and perform pretty well, especially considering you're spending $3,000 for the whole bike. This is a size extra large. I'm 6'2". It feels pretty comfortable. The reach on this bike is really long on paper. It doesn't feel uncomfortable or too stretched out. I don't think I'd go smaller. Well, in fact, I know I wouldn't go smaller, especially for a bike that's supposed to be ridden hard. You know, it's their enduro bike. So while this Rain's pretty heavy, it pedals efficiently. That Maestro suspension does a really good job. Generally, I always like Giant suspension platform. The bike just feels heavy, doesn't feel too excited to get up and go, but it pedals efficiently. And I think if you're on smooth stuff and you can just spin nice even circles, you can climb all day. In some of this techier stuff, it might not shine quite as much. So compared to the carbon, really expensive version of this bike, this one obviously does not climb as well. Carbon one's lighter, sub 30 pounds, you know, pretty light. This one is not sub 30 pounds, and it's not the most energetic or excited climber, but it does okay. Got stuffed. I'm gonna go back. I want to get that. The suspension platform does give you a fair bit of traction. It does a good job of keeping that back tire on the ground even when you stand up to power over some of these rocks. Some of this tech is just really awkward, but so far the bike's handling it pretty well. I think I'd need to get tougher to pedal this bike with this gearing. Even in a pretty easy gear, it's kind of hard for me to keep the cranks turning and all this stuff. It's not super easy just to pedal up it. But all in all, I think it did pass the techie climb test. I mean, if this was my everyday bike, I wouldn't be too upset. At the top of the climb here, I like this bike well enough on the climbs. I don't really have any complaints, and I'm a little surprised to hear myself say that, given how heavy it is. But rides well. Okay, gonna start a little downhill here. The Giant Rain 2, I can already tell I do not like these brakes very much. That's the awkward up and over with the very narrow exit. It's easy to miss. This bike rides pretty quiet and planted. I think that's just a common theme among alloy bikes. They just kind of have this really damped feel to them. I really like that. They feel good. Woo! So this part of the trail is pretty techy. It's got some tighter stuff, some awkward, not very steep, rocky downhills, so kind of working to keep some flow and momentum going. The suspension, you know, for being not high-end suspension on this bike, it rides really well. Fork feels okay. The rear end of the bike feels great, actually. And then I'm sure part of that has to do with the alloy frame, making everything feel a little more damped. So this bike has a 146 millimeters of rear travel, 160 front. Whew, that was butter. Like the quietest, smoothest landing I've ever had off of that drop. Just dead quiet. It's a little tough getting this bike into the air. Maybe because it's heavy, maybe it's part of the alloy, just not making it super springy. But it is a little tough to bunny hop or pull up and make extra height, especially compared to that high-end carbon one I've ridden. I would not hate a longer dropper. I would guess this is 150, and on an extra large, it'd be great to be able to run a 170. On my personal bike, I run a 200, so this feels a little short to me. Like I was saying a little earlier, this isn't the most lively feeling bike. It's kind of more planted. I think it's happier to stick on the ground and just kind of motor instead of pick up and get tricky with lines and stuff. Again, holy cow, so buttery smooth. That suspension just feels amazing. So big fan of this bike in the chunk. For sure, in the rocky, rough stuff, it's great. So thinking about any part I might upgrade on this bike, if I could upgrade one component, I'd pick brakes. The saddle's really uncomfortable, but I can deal with that. I just think it's kind of cool to be able to stop a bike when you need to. So definitely would go with upgrading the brakes. Not a big fan of these. They feel a little underpowered, especially for a bike with this much travel, meant to ride the way this bike is meant to ride. Sounds a little counterintuitive, but good brakes make you go faster because you can brake later into a corner, so you're going fast for longer, and then you can just have that extra confidence of knowing you can stop when you need to. So when you don't have that confidence, it's hard to hold it open and let yourself go as fast. So that'd be my number one thing to change on this bike, is put some good brakes on it. Honestly, I'm happy enough with everything else on it. So on the downhill, this bike feels really good, really planted, real comfortable. Suspension works well. Who is this bike for? I think it's for the hard charger. Someone looking to get after it. They're kind of a wheels on the ground, just plowing through rocks type rider. This bike would be great for someone looking for a park bike or just kind of an all-around burly, heavy. Oh! So this is great for someone looking for a park bike, an all-around kind of heavy-duty mountain bike. It's a little techie and awkward. There goes my derailleur. Not a big deal. Chain ringed that log. Geez, this is the hardest part of the whole trail. So all in all, this bike definitely gets a pass. Carbon one feels a little bit lighter. It feels maybe a little more all-purpose. It'll climb better. Feels a little more lively. But this one, I think, feels better in the rough. Feels a little more planted. I think this bike is a great option for someone looking for a rough and rugged all-mountain bike. So, thanks for sticking around. Be sure to watch the other videos in this series. We've got a Santa Cruz Hightower, an Ibis Ritmo AF, and an Orbea Occam. So, stick around, see how those bikes compare. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. I'm gonna call it.